What we've done here, there's a two-pillar reform. Pillar one reallocates so-called taxing rights. What that means in practice is that the 100 thereabouts largest and most successful multinationals around the world now have to pay their fair share of tax in the markets in which they operate and generate profits. And on top of that, we've also agreed, and leaders have agreed, to a pillar two of that reform, which introduces a minimum corporate tax rate of 15%. So what that does, it completely eliminates the incentive for businesses around the world to restructure their affairs in order to avoid tax. And between those two pillars, it will pillar one will reallocate about $125 billion US a year in taxes to market jurisdictions. So that makes the system fairer, in particular for those jurisdictions that in the past saw profits moved out of their economies into other parts of the world where they would not attract tax. And of course, and then the pillar two, the minimum corporate tax rate of 15%, that is expected to generate about $150 billion worth of additional revenue every year around the world, which can be invested into public services and into repairing the budgets and balance sheets in the wake of the COVID pandemic. And that is where I'm saying we ought to have, in the same way as we've had an inclusive. So what will happen here is that developing economies will see significant increases in the revenue, own source revenue they'll be able to generate on the back of those reforms. And in the end, people can say, and the rate should have been higher, this should have been different. 80% of something is always better than 100% of nothing. And in the end, people can say it's not good enough. But sometimes, we should never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We think this is a very good reform. It's a historic reform, and it will deliver significant benefits to countries around the world, including and in particular developing countries around the world. The Biden administration's approach to this was an absolute game changer. We would not have been able to reach this historic international agreement, making our international tax arrangements fairer and work better, if it hadn't been for the attitude with which the Biden administration came into this conversation on being elected towards the end of last year. The second point is, well, look, we understand that countries around the world, including the US, now has to work on the implementation of this deal through their domestic processes. I'm confident that the US and countries all around the world that have signed on to this deal will now seek to implement it swiftly and in good faith. But that's now a matter for the domestic processes in all those jurisdictions that have signed on.